I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah.
Welcome to Hard Knock Life. I am Keith Chow.
I'm Brittany Monet.
Hi, I'm Dominic Ma.
What an eventful week on Disney Plus. This is the first time in the history of the streaming service where they've dropped a Star Wars and a Marvel thing simultaneously. We're going to talk about both of those things today. That's why we're here. But before we get into that, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good. I went to the gym today for the first time since the pandemic stuff, because anyone who follows me on social media knows I have a setup in my garage where I can work out, so I've been doing that mainly. So actually going to the gym today, it was nice. It was a little different, but it wasn't too crowded, so it wasn't like a shock or anything. I figured I'd be fine since I've been going to concerts, but yeah, it was nice to actually go to the gym.
Yeah, it's nice. Working out and not worrying about catching a life-threatening disease is always a good thing, right? Because it's I want to go to the gym and get healthy. However, going to the gym and breathing other people's germs is not a good thing, and that's the irony of the last 3 years.
Whatever the opposite is of going to the gym is what I've been doing. Whatever the exact opposite of that is.
Well, you've been watching people playing basketball as what you've been doing, isn't it?
Certain amount of that. Yep.
Doing it yourself, on the other hand, is...
Oh, God, it'd be too much. But yeah, pretty exciting series. I bet it's going to go 7 games. Just has that feeling, the way they're fighting each other.
Steph Curry is on another level.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
She's made of magic.
And that's all the sports ball we'll be talking about on this episode of Hard Knock Life. We're not here to talk about gyms and basketball. What kind of podcast is this? This is Hard Knock Life. We're not talking about exercise and sports. Yeah. We're talking about sitting in front of our televisions and streaming 2 hours of nerdy content on Disney Plus. June 8th was the first time, as I said, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ms. Marvel dropped back-to-back. My question to you guys, which one did you choose to watch first?
Kenobi.
Well, you are a Star Wars head at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Dominic?
Oh, I've been really looking forward to Miss Marvel. I was really interested in that one. Kenobi, I'm kind of falling off interest parts of
Interesting.
it. As we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm with Brittany. I went with Kenobi first. What prompted that, honestly, was it was shorter. I looked at the time. I was like, okay, Kenobi's 39 minutes. I can knock that out and then get into Ms. Marvel right after. So, but did everyone do it back-to-back, or did you just space them out?
Yeah, I did it back-to-back.
Yeah. It's interesting juxtaposition, right? Because it's really the story of two young ladies in these two Disney shows.
Well, let's start then with Ms. Marvel, since that's the newer one. And, we've been covering Kenobi for the last couple weeks. As Dominic said, we've been anticipating Ms. Marvel for some time now. This is the first Marvel thing since Multiverse of Madness. So, Marvel has always reigned supreme when it comes to dominating the discourse. Delightful show.
Really delightful.
We're not going to talk about the review bomb and the assholes on the internet who decide that for whatever reason people can't have joy. So we're just going to focus on
delightful, sparkly joy is what's being oppressed on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's, again, I don't use Rotten Tomatoes for anything.
Yeah,
so I feel comfortable saying that.
And I don't even understand the appeal of review bombing, but we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about Iman Vellani's performance as Kamala Khan and the show overall. What were your first impressions of Ms. Marvel?
I just keep using the word delightful. I mean, she did great. I mean, it's there's so much for her to do in this part, because it's it's sort of a throwback to older MCU stories. It's a real origin story. Starts with the person, no costume. Crazy shit happens. We have to establish her whole family story and her own interior story, and she's voiceovering a whole lot of it. A lot to do. And then I'll admit I had some worry because, a young person, not that famous, and, brown, Pakistani, Muslim person, which we haven't had too many of in the Marvel Universe, if any. Just, exposed to all the terrors of internet criticism and stuff like that. And so given all those things, she's just, wonderful.
Yeah. Well, what's cool about Iman is that I'm not worried about that. And, well, you know, let me preface by saying, of course, protect Iman Vellani at all costs and any harassment that's sent her way, even though I don't think she has any social media.
Yeah, that's probably the safe way to go. I mean, not having social media.
Yeah.
If
And
you're in that
so
position.
the one thing I don't worry about Iman is that before being cast as Ms. Marvel, she herself was a super fan. And I think she knows how to navigate fandom and internet culture so much so that she's like, I don't even have a social media, y'all. so I think that Iman is fine in terms of like not letting this shit get to her. But, you know, of course, we do not condone any of that awful behavior that people just can't help themselves. Brittany, what was your first impression of Ms. Marvel?
I actually agree with Dom. It was very delightful. I loved it a lot. It felt like, what's his name? Like a John Hughes type of vibe is right, but it felt something in that, like, wheelhouse. Every character, even they had, like, 2 seconds of, like, screen time, like, gave so much life into the story. So I would just say, like, from just the casting for a counselor to, like, I don't know, just everyone in the show is just so fun to watch. And just, yeah, the power change is the one thing that I really only have, like, a huge, like, they could have kept her powers the same. But everything else is great. Iman is just, she's amazing. And I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was delighted. That's going to be the theme, I think, of this review. I was completely delighted with everything from the performances to the aesthetic of the show. I loved, you know, what I always complain about when it comes to the MCU is like the visual nature of the storytelling. And this looks unlike anything else in the MCU. Like it fully embrace its comic book nature. It kind of goes back to like some of the Ang Lee Hulk stuff where like the camera starts moving in different directions and
Right.
it starts fading into each other and they look like panels.
Right.
There's some animation going on in the background when they're riding their bikes and the graffiti turns to life.
Oh, and the text combo.
And the text conversation. That was such a unique way because there's always like superimposing the text bubbles on the screen, but they decided to actually use the environment to manifest the text between Bruno and Kamala. So I think just the direction and the overall visual presentation. What I appreciated is that I think the comics themselves, like those first few issues written by G. Will Wilson and drawn by Adrian Adolfo, looked unlike anything Marvel was publishing at the time.
Yeah.
And I
Different
think that
style.
right, the art style was so unique. And what I think this show gets is like we're going to do that with the live action MCU. We're going to present this in a way because Ms. Marvel is such a unique character. Unique and yet very reminiscent of, you know, you mentioned John Hughes and I thought that was interesting because I got like Spider-Man Homecoming vibes, right? It's very much in that wheelhouse of like the Tom Holland Spider-Man because it's about these high school kids and they feel like high school kids. And you feel like what it's like to be in high school. And so, yeah. And Kamala Khan essentially is the 21st century Peter Parker.
Yeah.
In so many ways. I mean, for various reasons, like, I think it pulls off that John Hughes vibe that they were very distinctly going for in Spider-Man Homecoming. And it was not my favorite. I mean, I like the idea, but I didn't think the execution was great, simply on the level of the writing. And I think, like, the writing here is a lot cleverer, and her delivery just kind of, I mean, she, you know, again, back to the Kamala Khan Peter Parker thing, like, she gets that sort of wise-ass, self-deprecating, like, snarky thing going all the time. At times she verges almost into, like doing sort of a mumblecore cliche thing of like everything I say is like deadpan and like I'm too cool for this. But if that's, you know, that's the worst thing I can say about a performance, that's fine. It's because mostly it's pretty funny.
Yeah, and I do think it captures what it's like to be 15, 16 years old now. You know, because it starts off with her YouTube channel, you know, and it's the whole like which is an interesting variation on, I think she's a fanfic writer in the comics. So like how do you visually represent that in live action? Well, you make it's less interesting to watch someone writing fan fiction as it is creating like videos on YouTube. And that's just a perfect adaptation of like the essence of who the character, because I think she even uses the same pseudonym for her YouTube channel, the Sloth King or whatever. And so like that aspect is really cool. I'm smitten with the show. I think it's great. What did you guys think of AvengerCon? If there was, I have some issues with AvengerCon, but I wanted to get your impression of that. Is that something you would want to attend yourself?
I've never been to a con, so I can't critique it on like if it flowed like a con should con. You know, I don't know, but it looks fun, and I definitely recognized Ryan Penagos, aka Agent M. I don't know if everyone knows who that is, but he
was the host.
Yeah, he was the host of he used to do like social media marketing or whatever for Marvel and some other stuff, and like podcasting through like official Marvel stuff.
Right.
So he's one of like the people to kind of follow if you're ever looking for clues for Marvel stuff. He's great. But so yeah, I recognized him, and I don't know, it was an interesting like costume contest, and
it definitely gave us some Carrie vibe.
Yes.
Carrie. Oh God. Right.
Dominic, you are the convention-going expert on this podcast. How would you rate AvengerCon as a convention-going experience?
Well, I mean, it did make me think of going to real conventions, which I continue to swear off doing. I don't know. We talked about that before.
Right.
So I haven't really been to any in the pandemic era, but that was cool. Again, just a nod to how much we want that kind of togetherness and stuff. And again, you know, like if people are wondering, it's not like San Diego Comic-Con. It's not like that huge one that's outdoors in the sun. It's more analogous to the New York Con, or like one of the smaller San Francisco cons, which is like in a hotel,
right?
And has more like a very
more intimate,
very weird, nerdy private club rave vibe. And you know, it's in a dark space and everything's flashing lights. And it also made me think of the beginning of the Avengers video game, which is not so good, but Kamala Khan is inarguably the best part of it, and it was the best showcase of Miss Marvel up until this point, because it starts in a similar way. She goes to this big, Avengers fan love fest, and then, the magic power thing starts happening.
So my only critique, if
Yes.
if I were to say it, if we were to put it that way, is what the fuck kind of con starts at like 7 p.m. on like a school night? Like, aren't conventions usually on weekends during the day, and you don't have to sneak out of your house after dinner
realist con
to get
critique.
to the convention? I just thought that was really interesting. That like, why is that con starting at 7 p.m.?
Yes, if you're watching at home, kids, that's not actually a barrier you might have to get through.
For the drama.
It's not like a nightclub and a concert. But
right,
yes.
right. There's like a bouncer and like a line. Like, what the fuck kind of con is this?
Yes, and that's what the kids think. But yes, obviously, it is for the drama. They manufactured that some, unlikely hour. But yeah, that is a way of making it seem like even more fun than it is. Like, it's a nighttime. It's this special thing that all the cool kids are going to. No, it's not. It's by 7 p.m. It's been going on all day, and everyone's hot and sweaty in their cosplay outfits. Can we mention, like, there are a few things about that convention sequence that were, like, very, very too real, that all us convention goers will, like, there's the cosplay poser problem, which, is when those people who aren't really fans of the character but just happen to look really good in a costume and like dressing up. At some point those people all invaded Comic-Con, and it was weird, like sort of
all the popular kids showing
aspiring
up
models in public view kind of thing. Which we're not like policing which body types can be where, but we're saying that dynamic shifted the whole convention cosplay vibe. And so it's just summed up in the moment when like she sees Zoe in the classic Captain Marvel costume, and it's like, he doesn't even like Captain Marvel, and it's so true. But of course she takes a costume because she's like blonde and like the perfect type to wear the Captain Marvel costume, and that shit happens all the time. So that was a good like bit of drama, which I just want to point out in case you're not the cosplay dynamic is not.
They actually did a good job too, I think, of highlighting some of Kamala's, her own kind of like body issues, right? Like there's that scene in front of the mirror where she's thinking about how tight the pants are, and she covers herself up with the scarf. And then, of course, there's that really real scene when she's being tailored for her wedding outfit. And, it's interesting because the mom is like, she's not too short. But then the auntie comes in and she's like, "You're too short," and she's like, "Yeah, she's too short," right? Like there's always that like familial kind of like deprecation that happens, because I know that you guys talk so much about in the comics, you know, like there is that aspect of her kind of like morphing into the Caucasian Carol Danvers and that like self-image and body type and all that stuff in the comics that they don't really do here, because there's not that morphing body aspect, but they still kind of hint at and get at some of that. Like you said imposter, but like there's an imposter syndrome to Kamala in the costume and Kamala in the show that I think
totally
they get at without translating exactly word for word from the comics.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I can go on about the sparkly powers versus stretchy powers problem for one more time. I don't think it'll be the last time. But again, I think it's totally fine that they switched up the powers because, well, for various reasons, but like the one thing, the sort of I have a terrible looking body issue teenage problem, which is just the interesting part of those shape-shifting powers, the thing that gives it sort of metaphorical weight in the comics. You can still have that. It doesn't need to be in superpowered form. I know, I still have this feeling like they just didn't do it for budgetary reasons, and I still hold out hope that it's something she'll discover in the Marvels, the movie, which will be like the big reveal there. Because when we get to the Marvels movie, which I'm tangenting, but I'm really super looking forward to, everyone has sparkly powers. Captain Marvel's super sparkly powers. Monica Rambeau has even more sparkly powers. We'll need to give her something else to do, and I think that'll be the big reveal, the embiggening hand, which will make Team Polymorph happy at last. You just gotta wait for it. I think you just have to wait.
There's something to be said about that, because there was an interview with the directors Adil and Bilal that I think New Rockstar's YouTube channel conducted. They essentially said, yes, we changed the powers, but she's evolving, and you may see the real deal in the final episode. So, to your point, and you'd been saying this all along, that like there might be an evolution of her powers, and let's not go crazy just because it's not exactly the kind. Which is interesting because, you know, we talked about the review bombing earlier, and yes, some of the review bombs are just racist assholes, but a lot of the review bombs are also like, she doesn't have the right powers.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's not 100% like racist, but it's still like shitty fans because like you can't accept adaptations from being different. But just, you know, there are some folks out there who are like super pissed off that she has different powers. So I'll just put that there for the review bombing that's going on.
Well, right. That's why I don't want to get too locked into my preference for the stretchy powers, because, you know, be open-minded, adapt or die, all these things. We have to, you know, if we're the responsible fans, let's be that. And
once seen in action, Brittany, like, did you feel that like they were able to kind of at least capture the essence of the character, even if the powers are not 100% the same?
Yeah, I feel like it felt like the essence of her. And, you know, like I said, my dad converted to Islam when I was like 1 or something like that. So I did go to the mosque and things like that with him. So when I read, you know, the first issue of Miss Marvel, it felt like, you know, a girl who I would have hung out with at the mosque while, you know, so it felt personal in that kind of way. And just also some of like the things I understood just because, you know, my dad was Muslim, so like we couldn't eat pork or we couldn't do certain things. And so I got a little emotional watching it, not gonna lie, because it just reminded me of that and just reading the first issue. So I think, yes, the essence of her is very much still there, just they changed the powers. And I actually talked about the power like change with one of my Black Lightning co-hosts, and we both agreed that it was probably to make more sense to general audiences who don't read the comics, that like why would she be a huge fan of like Captain Marvel and then like end up being called Miss Marvel and not having similar powers, you know. So for general audiences it's probably an easier, it's kind of sad they're saying general audiences are kind of dumb, but like that's kind of probably why they changed it, to make it easier on general audience instead of having to explain, well actually she's an Inhuman, you know, like Black Bolt, and you know, like it would be harder to explain that, I guess, versus like, you know, she's a huge fan of Miss Marvel.
Oh yeah. No, I'm so glad they didn't do that, because again, on that point, like, the Terrigen Mist and human stuff would have been authentic, but way too much. And the device of it being, you know, this old magical object that comes from an old family member, that's something everyone can relate to. And as a change, it's like an informed change, because her bracelets have a big deal to do in the comics, you know, with her background. I mean, if I'm getting this wrong, someone correct me, but like I think their bracelets she wears in the costume at some point came from, you know, like her grandmother Aisha, and they had like secret compartments where she like smuggled things that she wasn't supposed to have during the partition and during where all that stuff was going on. So they have a lot of, you know, symbolic weight, and we don't know what the origin of them is, but I think it has something to do with her family history, which is, let's be honest, going to be a lot more interesting as a storytelling element than, oh, the Inhumans Terrigen Mist came in and like doused her. Like, where do these bracelets come from? Why do they do this? That's like good, you know, that's a better choice.
Yeah.
Ends up being.
And well, let's talk about her family real quick too, because you know, you both alluded to one, you know, I'm sure the grandmother's going to come into play more because they definitely set up this idea of the mom kind of equating Kamala's dreaminess to her mother, and that's where the bracelet comes from. So there's going to be some sort of connection, I'm sure, between her grandmother and her. But also the parents, I think, I actually appreciate that they demonstrate their religion very matter-of-factly. Mm-hmm. Like the brother is clearly devout, but he's also just like a regular dude. You know, He has like a heart-to-heart with his sister, you know, gets picked on by her, you know. He's the golden child, but he's also he's even more devout than his parents are, you know.
Yeah.
And
he's sort of a nerd for being very religious in the way and framework. But anyway, sorry, go on.
And then, but both, like, either the mom, of course, is the hard ass, and Disney's 3 for 3 for Asian hard ass moms so far with like Turning Red and other things. Encanto's another one. I guess not Asian mom, just hard ass like matriarchs in the family. But anyway, so like, what was your impression of the way the family was depicted?
It felt very much like what, you know, G. Willow Wilson started. It felt much like that. I loved it, and I think I'm glad that there wasn't too many changes on that front, because I feel like they're just as important as Kamala is. It felt real. Her brother was always one of my favorites reading him, because he was like, you know, like we said, the one who's over religious and then also kind of like a normal dude. And I don't know, I always remember the one panel where they're like, I think eating breakfast, and he's like drinking coffee or something, and he says something to her like, you know, that's haram, Pamela, I can't do that or something. Like, I just remember one of those panels, and so it had that essence there to me. I'm pretty surprised though that he's getting married so soon, because it takes a little bit for him to actually, like, I think, propose and all that.
They got to condense it for the live action,
because as we know, there's a whole storyline where they were kind of thrown off that she was a black Muslim who he ends up like marrying. So you know, that was the storyline in the comics, for those who don't remember. So
I think I, for one, am very happy to get to the wedding scene sooner than later.
Yeah,
the music, the costumes. We wanted a cool wedding scene.
That was the only thing that I was like, oh, they're speeding that up real quick.
And you know, I think it is going to be an important part, or at least a turning point in the show, because just thinking from the trailers, the one scene where you do see her embiggened fist, I think is during the wedding, because she's wearing the outfit that she's trying on in this episode. So I think that's when her powers come to fruition, will be at this wedding. Of course, if you stayed through the credits, this is the first Disney Plus show to have a post-credit scene in the first episode and not the last episode. And we got to see...
Wait, there was one?
Yeah, there was a post-credit scene.
Yes, I didn't really understand what's happening. Were we supposed to recognize those people?
The lady, I'm not so much, but the guy is the same guy from Spider-Man No Way Home. He's the damage control guy. The one whose arms everyone thought was Matt Murdock's in the trailers.
Right, okay.
That's the guy. So he's the damage control guy. So they're still monitoring superheroes in this post Far From Home, post No Way Home.
Mine went to I don't know.
Did it do that thing where it force fed you the credits, like or tried to get you to jump to the next thing before the first thing was over?
It was more like a mid-credit scene, because it was after they did all of the really cool
I'll have to
title
watch
cards.
It again.
Yeah, you go back and watch it, because what I really
it wasn't really exciting one. It was just the two official looking people looking at their phone. It's not anything like
I mean,
awesome.
it's not huge, but it was like
no, but still, I didn't see it.
You're right. You got to get all the content. But I love speaking of the comics, I did love the credit sequence, just because, you know, it was like highlighting and showcasing artwork from the actual comics as they were, you know, showing the credits. But yeah, it was after that. It's the typical mid-credit sequence where they show the title card and then they cut to the scene. and then it just goes back to regular credits. Any final thoughts on Ms. Marvel before we move on to the other Disney thing?
I really like that her problem as presented in the first episode is a conundrum that I think a lot of us Marvel fans can relate to. In plain terms, it's, you know, are you gonna do real life stuff, or are you really invested in spending time in this fantasy world? And, you know, that's pretty poignant and it's pretty real for a lot of us, you know, who in the real world will be, you know, made fun of, or at least oh, that guy's the Marvel nerd. Oh, you're so into that Marvel thing. But it's a very real life problem because, you know, especially if you don't have the option to become a superhero, yeah, maybe you should buckle down and do something serious.
I do love the exploration of like Avengers fandom, because of course in this world there are no comic books, right? Like there's no Comic-Con, but like Avenger Con is, you know, the fandom of the Marvel universe is people kind of like worshiping these actual real heroes, and they build up this whole like, you know, fan fiction, the YouTube channel kind of fantasies about what is ostensibly like real people flying around in the skies. You know, I love that aspect of just kind of seeing the Avengers from the perspective of like regular people. That's what I really liked about the opening of Hawkeye, where you got to see the Battle of New York from Kate Bishop's point of view, right? Like it's just like we've seen it presented where they're the protagonists. Now we get to see those events presented through a third party. You know, I loved Kamala kind of like narrating the end of Endgame, but from her perspective as a Carol Danvers fan, you know, like I just think that's because
that maybe was the best moment of Endgame.
But that's the beauty of an expansive cinematic universe, right? Like the shittiness is when people like complain about continuity and all that, but the beauty of an expanded universe is you get to see the different angles and the different perspectives of all the people in the world, and I get a kick out of that stuff.
Totally. And also, yeah, they probably don't have Marvel comics as they have them here. They're like documentary, real life story comics or something.
Right.
But
well, they are.
Disney,
because there's that
right.
Peter Parker, remember on the airplane, he's like scrolling through all of the documentaries about Tony Stark and Peter Quill and stuff. So, yeah, in their world, rather than like the MCU Marvel movies, they're still watching Marvel movies. They're just all documentaries.
Right.
They did have Captain America comics, though, because of the first Avenger. They did make comics of him.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, so they have some more of that. But I was going to say good for Disney because, you know, Star Wars and Disney movies totally exist in this world as movies, as we know. And just because there's that part where she quotes the Mulan song, and I thought that was that's also wonderful.
That was the counselor.
Yeah,
totally. I mean, the exchange with the counselor, beautiful moment. And weirdly earned by Disney buying everything. and
also Stan Lee exists in the universe, because you remember in Captain Marvel, I think his final cameo before he passes away, he's playing himself on the bus to the Mallrats set where he's playing Stan Lee. So have that break your brain for a second. In the Captain Marvel movie, remember when she's on a bus and she looks down and it's Stan Lee and he's reading the Mallrats script because he was about to... He's going to set to film his cameo as Stan Lee, and I just think that's a brain breaker for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does Stan Lee do in the MCU? Like,
well, in the 90s, he fails at that because his stories are too weird and not related to real life. So he gets 100 odd jobs to cameo in all the other movies, and then he becomes a watcher.
You're right, exactly.
Wrong, right? And so it works out okay.
Yeah. So speaking of expanded universes where people nitpick about continuity, let's talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi after the break. Guess what? Goalie Nutrition is sponsoring Hard Knock Life, and you can go to goalie.com to buy apple cider vinegar gummies, they're ashwagandha gummies, superfruit gummies, and super greens gummies, and you get 10% off plus free shipping if you use the code HARDKNOCK at goalie.com. This is honestly, I've been taking the goalie gummies now for a couple weeks, and I have to say, they're tasty and they're good for you. Have you guys been enjoying the goalie gummies?
I really like them. They're yummy, but it's a nice to add to my like routine of already like I normally take just straight vitamin C, so it's nice to have like extra supplements.
For a long time, people have praised the benefits of apple cider vinegar, and you know, as someone who's had to like drink straight apple cider vinegar sometimes when I'm not feeling well, or you know, I have some joint pain, and your mom is like, drink some apple cider vinegar. It's not the most appetizing home remedy, let's just say.
No,
Right.
it tastes horrible.
Like
So
the apple cider part is like, ooh, does it taste like apple cider? And it's like, no, it tastes like vinegar. But ACV is very good for you. And the fact that Goli has been able to put the ACV into these tasty little gummies made with pectin and fruit peels, which make them vegan, which is cool. So if you're vegan, you can still rock these gummies, because everyone knows gummies are usually made out of like gelatin and nasty shit. These are made out of complete non-GMO, gelatin-free, gluten-free, vegan ingredients, and you can get the benefits, all of the benefits of apple cider vinegar, taking these tasty, delicious, convenient gummies. So go to Goli.com and use the code HARDKNOCK, that's HARDNOC, just like the podcast you're listening to. Get 10% off your purchase of Goli products and free shipping.
It's a much better delivery device for that apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
These Goli gummies are great. You get
I
it, and it's
agree
a
100.
delicious little candy. And I've been enjoying the Super Fruits one. I did feel kind of refreshed after taking a few of those.
yeah, no, but I'm loving them so far, and they're definitely tasty. If you just want tasty gummies, at least just eat them for the yumminess.
Yeah. So go to Goli.com, use the code HARDKNOCK, HARDNOC, get 10% off your purchase and free shipping at Goli.com with the code HARDKNOCK. Hard Knock Life is being sponsored by Athletic Greens. I want to talk to you about Athletic Greens. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Basically all the things. One of the best things about Athletic Greens is that it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It also contains less than 1 gram of sugar and no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, that's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is partnering with Hard Knock Media to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. That's athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. I've heard a lot of people hating on this particular episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Dominic, you kind of alluded to the fact that you're losing interest as the series progresses, and I've heard some of that criticism of the show. I'm still all in, and I was actually surprised when I went to social media after watching episode 4 that nobody liked this episode and no one likes the show anymore.
No one in quotes. As Twitter would say, some no ones are discussing how they do.
Right, that's what I was about to say. Yeah, so let's before prejudging any further, what were your impressions of episode 4, A New Hope?
Wait, what?
I mean Obi-Wan Kenobi, not A New Hope. I was making a Star Wars joke.
Star Wars, A New Hope is a great movie. Are we talking about that one? I don't know if you've seen it. It's like this indie film from the 70s. Okay, I'm making bullshit. Go ahead.
Well, no, I want to give a shout out to the YouTube channel Screen Crush. They made this really cool observation that through the first 4 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, each of those episodes have echoed the corresponding episode in the Star Wars saga. So episode 1, where we first meet Obi-Wan, it takes place on Tatooine, and a child gets taken, and the characters have to go on this adventure through space to find them. The second episode takes place on both a water planet and the seedy underworld planet, just like Attack of the Clones did. Episode 3 is an Anakin Obi-Wan duel, and now in episode 4 you have Obi-Wan rescuing Princess Leia on a Imperial space station, essentially, right? So like so far every episode of the show has echoed the corresponding episode in the Star Wars saga. So anyway, I just thought that was really neat.
Under that logic, it's kind of a diss if they stop at 6 episodes, right? It's sort of like saying 7, 8, 9 aren't worth their time.
Well, maybe.
I'm just, again, fanning bullshit into the fire. Please go on.
Well, before we get to you, Dominic, Brittany, what did you think of this most recent episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Look, as much as I can get little Leia, I will take it, because she is just adorable. She's so good. And like I said, I feel like Carrie Fisher would be very proud of this young little lady. She's so good. Vivian, right, is I think her name. I don't know. I loved her scenes with Reva, and I think Reva's cool too. I don't know. It's really been a fun show, and I just like seeing more of young Leia just because Luke is not the only one who's important, you know? Like, Leia is too. As Bale said, she matters too, so...
Oh, you know, I think that's absolutely right. Of course, Leia should be equitable to Luke in all facets of the Star Wars saga, but I will say that one thing, and we didn't talk about this when we discussed Episode 1, but wasn't the decision made, though, that, like, Leia is Bale's responsibility? So it's like, you lost her, motherfucker. Where you coming from? I'm supposed to watch this. It's not that I'm choosing Luke over Leia. Leia was your responsibility, Brett. So that's the only thing I wanted Ben to say, was that, like, we made a deal, dude. You said you were going to take Leia. I'll take Luke. Why are you coming to me? Because you lost her. So anyway, that's how I felt when... and it wasn't a judgment that, like, Leia's not as important as Luke. It's just that Ben was... I'm doing my job. I didn't lose Luke.
Yeah, from the parental responsibility point of view.
Right, exactly.
And where is Bale now, too? Like, why is he... Why are they just checking in? They just sent him off with this bad plan. Obi-Wan, take care of it. We're not going to give you a ticket back, like, on any Star Cruisers. Yeah. No help. Just go get my kid. Thanks.
That I lost.
I'll see you in 5 episodes. Again... Please go on.
Right, that's all I'm saying. Not making a judgment of which twin is more important in the saga. It's more about, like, parental responsibility. Bale abdicated to now Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, who the fuck's watching Luke now is all I'm saying. Anyway.
Probably because if he gets too close to the Empire and he's supposed to actually... Because he plays very well, especially if you read the Princess Valdron book, the Claudia Gray one. They're really trying to keep under wraps that they're actually secretly starting a rebellion. And there's a whole entire scene where, like, in the book, Rhea makes Tarkin believe that Bale is having an affair with Mon Mothma just to throw him off the scent of their, like, being a rebellion. And she, like, causes this entire huge scene at, like, a dinner party. And it's kind of embarrassing. And Tarkin's like, oh my god, these people are so, like, ugh. Like, you know? Like, how he would respond.
I mean, they do hint at some of that, too, when the Grand Inquisitor's like, why the fuck did you just kidnap an Imperial Senator's daughter? Like, you're going too far, Reva. Like, I totally get all of that and why.
So that's
right, but I'm just saying that, like, if I'm Obi-Wan, it's like, come on, man. That's your kid. You're not supposed to lose your own kid. Anyway. But back to this episode. Dominic, where did this one in particular lose you?
Well, look, because I'm not emotionally wrapped up in it yet for various reasons, I'm the one who is picking on all these little technical nerd things, which is purely just like a thing that nerds do. And I totally want to hear about why people are enjoying it for the story reasons and things that I'm not getting. But yeah, I'm bothered by things like how easy it is to take out 2 stormtroopers or escorting you. That, like, you just, like that bit where Tala just, like, gives him a little, like, rub under the chin, like he's a kitty cat, and he's taken out of commission. Her escape from the stormtroopers was, like, very much cutting a corner.
She's a sand snake.
That looked weird. Who's this?
From the Game of Thrones. Because she's from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, okay. Well, that would explain it, for one thing. I mean, if they just said that she has that special power.
And if only it was the same time period as The Mandalorian, it would be cool to have her, like, run into Din Djarin, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
And I'm sorry, you can't really fit 3 people into the back of those snow speeders or the T-47 tow trucks or whatever they are modified.
I thought you were going to make a comment about the comically overlarge trench coat that Obi-Wan was wearing.
That was also kind of comical and seemed like a bit of a cut corners thing because Obi-Wan keeps not doing any of his, like, redirection force powers, which he used so much in The New Hope. Like, oh, look over there. Okay, sorry, he does do it once. He creates the bump thing. But anyway.
Yeah. And he holds back the entire ocean. That was pretty cool.
but yeah, again, just purely technical and not important at all, but you can't get 3 people into the back of that particular starfighter. And it was just little things like that. You could have had a larger transport ship come along, but maybe there's a budgetary concern, and for these reasons I think they're cutting a few corners. But then again, I'm blabbing all this and saying it's not really important if you love some higher aspect of the story.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. I think there's definitely some economical decisions being made, particularly in this episode. You know, because, like, some of the criticisms I've heard, too, is that, like, when Obi-Wan first gets to the Inquisitorium and he takes out that stormtrooper when he gets out of the water, like, why isn't he just... Like, it would also have been a cool callback to A New Hope if he just, like, steals their armor and puts it on. And I was kind of hoping he'd do that and then slowly shed the armor so that he would look like Clone Wars Obi-Wan again, because he'd have, like, pieces of stormtrooper armor on top of his Jedi robes. That would have been kind of cool.
Because that's an old trick. or maybe it's not, because like Luke comes up with the first time in New Hope and it's like, never thought of that before. Right. Or
it could have also played then that Obi-Wan was telling them when they were all stowed away on the Millennium Falcon, like, hey, why don't you steal the stormtrooper costumes? I did that one time, it really works. But you know, all of that, I can forgive all those things when, like, I did think it was a little hilarious when they were like wearing the Imperial officer uniforms with the giant coat. I thought that was kind of funny. But at the same time, I can forgive all of those missteps or whatnot when you give me a pitch black torture room that's lit up by a lightsaber and Obi-Wan taking out stormtroopers. Like, that scene alone forgave every sin that this episode put out, because I was like, that's what I want to see. I also really, and I actually wanted to throw this to Britney, the Jedi encased in amber in the bottom of the Inquisitorium. I'm sure you recognize some of those characters. I didn't really recognize. I know I recognize like 1 or 2 of them, but
I recognize them, but I couldn't like place their names. So I'm like, did I see them on Clone Wars, or have they been described in books that I've been reading and didn't like realize it? And I don't play video games, so if they're video game characters, then I have no idea.
Maybe they were.
I'll be honest, because I do not play the video game, the Star Wars side of things.
Speaking of the video game real quick, I want to just call out some people. Like, I've also seen on the internet, like, people comparing cinematics from Fallen Order to scenes from the show, and like, why couldn't they make it look like that? And it's like, one, a video game and a live action series aren't supposed to look the same. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
That shit drives me crazy when people are like comparing 2 different mediums. Like, it's kind of the same thing with like the animation to the live action. Like, why doesn't the Grand Inquisitor look like the animated version? Like, it's 2 different mediums, man.
But sometimes there's something there because there is some great camera work in those video games. And it's weird saying camera work, but it's for anime. But
right.
Like, I'm just going to speak in defense of, there's some great shots in Fallen Order. And yeah, and I'd argue this series isn't bowling me over with its camera work choices.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like the first episode was probably the best use of like Deborah Chow's directorial sense. It does start to feel, you know, as much as I've said, Obi-Wan feels like you're watching a movie. There are aspects of it sometimes that do, like, you can tell that they're shooting that in a warehouse in like Long Beach or wherever the volume is.
Yeah,
but.
And again, I'm not saying all this stuff like shit and like it's bad show. Like, I'm enjoying it. I enjoy worrying about these little Star Wars nerdy details. It's sort of part of this comes from still not scared of the stormtroopers. Stormtroopers have never.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed
threat.
to be scared of stormtroopers.
Right,
yeah.
but
Scary.
But yeah, they've never been scary. But like, but whenever they like try to ramp up the stakes, and like what you were just saying about, you know, the scene where he finally busts out the lightsaber, still to me it's like, wow, you did all that and had Tala do all that dangerous stuff just so you could take out 2 lightsabers. Hey, what happened, man? Back in the day, you just like look at a, you know, cloud of 50s stormtroopers and just like roll right in there and slice them all up. So that was
he's a broken man.
Yeah, he's only just now reconnecting.
That's
to the
part
Force.
of the theme. I get it.
If I had one worry, it's the pacing, and I do feel like episodes 5 and 6, there's a danger that there's going to be too much packed into those 2 episodes, because I feel like a lot of the you know, as much as I love Leia, I'm with you. Give me more and more Leia. I do feel like the whole she's getting kidnapped, have to be rescued. She's getting kidnapped, have to be rescued. She's getting kidnapped, have to be is like, we probably could have just had one instance of kidnap rescue, and now this is on the third time she's being kidnapped and rescued. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I feel like this episode could have been better used to set up 5-6 than another have to go rescue Leia thing.
No, I agree. I feel like there maybe could have at least been one more episode in the series just so there could be a little bit more, because I wanted a little bit more Hayden, not gonna lie. Even though I know he's in the suit, I was hoping for some good like Clone War flashback things. So.
Did you think when they were both in the back to tank, like
we were gonna get one? Yes.
Yeah, because Boba Fett sets up back to tank equals flashback. I was really gearing up for some Clone Wars action.
Yeah. So I do hope they can wrap up the story nicely. But I've enjoyed every episode so far, but this one feels like it's starting to fall into the Marvel series issues where like
treading water.
Where all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's only 2 episodes left. It didn't really wrap up. I hope it wraps up right. Moon Knight to me is the only one so far that has like felt very cohesive from like start to end. So we'll see how the last 2 episodes go.
Speaking of like the pacing, I want to just point out one more thing before we move on from Obi-Wan, and it was the scene with O'Shea Jackson, where like he kind of changes his mind really quickly. It took me by surprise because like he's talking about like, yeah, I know what the Empire is capable of. My wife was forced into it, and he sounds like he's like arguing with Obi-Wan, and then all of a sudden he's like, "But if you need me, I'll take you." And it just, I don't know, it was just like the timing just seemed a little off because I was like, wait, I thought he was not into this mission, but now he is. All right, whatever. And Maya Erskine, I want to shout out Maya Erskine because like more
She's
Asians
one of the
in Star
X-Fighter
Wars.
Pilots, right?
Yeah, more Asians in Star Wars. The Snowspeeder.
Right.
More Asians in Star Wars. So I may have to do a follow up to my Asians in Star Wars post because there's just been so many now that it's going to be hard to keep up. So shout out to Maya Erskine and O'Shea Jackson, and I guess have we met all the actors that they said are going to be on the show? Because I remember people were like speculating, is O'Shea Jackson playing Quinlan Vos?
Yeah,
no, he's not.
I was wondering too.
Some people thought
know.
Maya Erskine might be playing Dr. Afra, but she's not. So, are we going to get Quinlan Vos, Dr. Afra? Are there characters
that cast, but they just haven't been announced because maybe the actor, who looks like Quinlan would be too obvious, and then obviously because a lot of people hoping Cal Kestis, I think that's his name, shows up from Fallen Order, and obviously what's his name is like the visual actor
Cameron Monaghan.
Yeah. So I feel like, if those characters are showing up, like, obviously, it would be too obvious if they're part of the casting list, so who knows?
And if they do, great. And if they don't, this is just a PSA to fanboys out there listening. If they don't, that's fine too. Because sometimes I feel like we get so caught up as fans that if this cameo doesn't happen or that cameo doesn't happen, it's a failure.
Yeah.
And we're all just kind of like waiting around for cameos.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should
That's
be
not
focused on
important
the
either.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I want to add on to that in my grouchy way. Yeah, I think we should not have any more character reveals and pull it back so it's about Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Because I really think part of my not getting so invested is it keeps getting detached and it's Obi-Wan just accepting help from people who are, very quickly convinced to help him. All this stuff. I understand it's a slow burn, but
It's a Mando problem, right? Because that's kind of like the formula for Mandalorian. Is that like Din Djarin goes to a planet, meets people for the very first time, somehow convinces them to help him because Grogu's so cute.
right.
And that's the episode. And that's kind of like they are a little bit falling into the Mandalorian problem where
Right.
it's like
By contrast, Mandalorian had that cool structure that each one was sort of a self-contained mini western.
it didn't have to be. Where this is definitely a serialized like get Leia back to Alderaan, what's taking you so goddamn long.
Yeah, it's but I'm just arguing for let's pull it all back and make it about Obi-Wan and these 2 or 3
I agree
main
with
characters that it's actually about.
I agree with that. I think we could actually use more Ewan, because if there's one thing that the last few episodes have kind of failed at is really kind of focusing on the Ewan stuff. Because what I love so much about episode 1 kind of goes back to what I was saying about the Marvel shows. Just seeing the world of Star Wars at this period, from kind of the ground level of like what it's like living in the Empire. Seeing Obi-Wan like slicing whale meat, even seeing the mining planet and just how like You know, that mole rat just driving a pickup truck with his Trump flag on the back. You know what I mean? Like, I love those kind of like small moments, and I wish we had more of them and less like plot heavy, plot driven. Let's meet all these characters. Mm-hmm. I like the taking time out for the small moments, and it's nice to give like Ewan those things to act, because you know, when he's talking about Padme in the last episode was such a great moment that we didn't get in this one. This one was very much like plot heavy. Mm-hmm. Get to the thing, get to the person, get to the room, save them, and blah, 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 blah. So, anyway, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's Ms. Marvel. What's Nerd Pop and Britney Monet?
I finally finished the new season of Stranger Things.
Yes.
Because I don't know if you had finished it the last time we were on, but I hadn't, so I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I called like 2 out of the 3 twists, basically.
Oh, okay.
I was pretty excited. And it was their fault, too, in a way. So,
whose fault? On
the first episode, they credited Jamie Campbell Bower or whatever. But I was like, he wasn't on the episode. And then I think because they know that people notice that, they took off him being on the show up until like he shows up
in the flashbacks.
Yes, basically. So I was like, and then I was like, I think he's supposed to be on every episode. And then there's a certain face that, spoiler alert if you haven't finished Stranger Things, turn this off right now. There's a face that Vecna makes, and I was like, wait a minute, that's
So
Jamie.
Do you know him from something else? I don't know that actor at all. What do I know? What do you know? I don't know him from anything. What was he on?
He was in Twilight. He's one of the he's one of the Volturi vampires. He's
okay.
He was actually,
sorry, Twilight fans. I've never seen Twilight.
I know him, so I was like, he hasn't been in a show yet. Like after watching the first 2 episodes, and at the end of episode 3, I was like, wait a minute, that's him. And then episode 4 is when they show him as the security guard guy, and I was just like,
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did see a tweet. Someone said the other day that like the #1 movie in the country is Top Gun. Mm-hmm. The #1 song in the country is Kate Bush. It's like the universe just said, fuck it, it's 1986 again.
Pretty much.
Wait,
like,
what's the #1 song? What's the Kate Bush song?
I know you don't watch Stranger Things, but there's a really emotional scene, I think in episode 3 or 4, when Max is about to be killed.
Yeah.
Is episode 4. Max is about to be killed by the big bad from the season. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that the kids learn is that if you hear, like, listen to your favorite song, music has a way of getting into your So this is just to back up a little bit. To back up a little bit, the killer this season, the monster this season is kind of like a Freddy Krueger type, where he kind of kills you.
But she's on the show.
Yeah, Robert Englund has a cameo in this.
Yeah, okay.
He kind of kills you in your subconscious, right? And so Max, who's one of the main kids, you know, she's got caught up and she's about to die essentially. And then the friends find her favorite song, which is Kate Bush's "Running Up the Hill." Puts the headphones on her and then saves her life essentially. And that song from that scene, people, you know, kids these days started discovering Kate Bush, and it became the most streamed song on iTunes.
I'm not gonna lie,
Stranger Things.
I've heard her name, but I never actually listened to her music. So
really?
That was the first time I heard
you're so
her
emo.
music.
I thought you would love Kate Bush.
I know. So I'm like, and it's so funny. I was like, this song sounds like right up my alley. How come I don't?
Yeah, you should check out Kate Bush.
I probably
her whole discography. You would totally.
I love any scene where music helps you defeat the big bad. So
that's a big.
That's
I'm totally into that idea.
Yeah, and it's a great song. You know, that in particular is a great song. I started listening to it. I started listening to like the Kate Bush essentials after that episode too. So, and I liked Kate Bush as a kid. So it was kind of cool to like revisit some of those songs. Like, it's so funny that I don't know how much into like R&B you are, but Maxwell covered this woman's work many years ago.
He sure did.
And like his version is probably more, if not more so, famous than Kate Bush's.
Wait,
but like a lot.
That's originally a Kate Bush.
That's
song?
a Kate Bush song.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
This woman's work.
I know that song.
Yeah, and like
a lot of people do.
A lot of people think it's a Maxwell song, and
I
it's
thought
like
it was too.
Yeah, it's a
I
Kate
know that
Bush song. Yeah, people think like it's a song about getting busy, but it's not, because it's about like. Is written for a movie in which like the woman dies during childbirth, and it's about like the dad having to like raise his baby on his own, But it's like it's almost like the opposite of like fucking.
Oh man,
what
is that how
song
they took the Maxwell cover? That it was like a slow jam for like.
Yeah, it's,
oh
like,
really?
it's like about fucking. It's always about.
Oh.
'Cause it's, well, one,
Now
it's
that makes it a
Maxwell.
little weird because that song is about this woman's work.
Yeah,
And
but Maxwell
it's-
singing anything sounds like fucking because that's Maxwell.
Okay,
Yeah.
You know?
that's.
I mean,
that's
the way
funny,
he sings
but,
the "I should be crying, but I just can't let it show," and it's like this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it was
Okay.
used in a sex scene in Love and Basketball.
Love and Basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they understood what this song's really about. But anyway,
Well, music is vast and
Yeah.
interesting, so that's great.
shout out Stranger. Yeah, Stranger Things Volume 4 has been
So far.
Season 4 Volume 1 has been really good. I'm a little disappointed that they cut and are only come back with 2 episodes.
Yeah, but each one is supposed to be like 2 hours, basically.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. Like even this season, each episode is like an hour and a half. It's like it's so wild.
Which
like,
I'm fine with that because every episode was good and I felt like it told every.
yeah, you know, it
like,
didn't feel. It didn't
It's-
feel long at all.
So I feel like more shows need to take the risk and like if you need to tack on an extra 15 minutes to effectively tell your story, do it because it was done well and every episode was good and it never felt like it was that long watching it.
One criticism I'll say is like similar to like I wish they would just hurry the fuck up and bring Leia home. I wish they would hurry the fuck up and bring Hopper home because like that storyline to me is dragging.
I feel like they could have maybe not have kept in so much Hopper stuff, but I don't know if you recognized Enzo. He is
Yeah, it is
the man of
a
many
man with no
faces.
face. Yeah.
From Game of
A
Thrones.
girl. What is it? A girl.
The girl
what
is
did he
no
say?
one.
A girl's no one. Yeah, that's that guy. Anyway, yeah, Stranger Things. Shout out the season. Well, the second half of season 4 comes back July 1st, and yeah, this is also like probably the scariest Stranger Things, or like the
Yes.
most horror. They've always kind of like alluded to like Stephen King stuff and the
I feel
horror
like they
stuff of the
finally
80s.
like
But
braced it.
yeah, this is straight. I mean, this is the scene straight out of like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Which is
in
funny,
this.
I've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street, but I know what Freddy Krueger looks like in and out of like prosthetics. And I remember when he got cast, I was like hoping that he would be like
I thought
the
he was
big
Vecna.
bag.
I thought he was going to be Vecna. But
And that's why I'm like mad that I didn't call all 3 of the twists because I'm like I should have caught the 3rd one because of Freddy Krueger.
yeah. Cool. Dominic, what's nerd popping?
Oh, over on the DC side, I was just going to mention real quick that a Black Adam trailer came out, and it was real interesting. It's pretty cool. There's some, Justice Society people in there, and I am not the biggest Black Adam person, so it's not like that's why it's my nerd popping, but, getting back to living in real life versus living in comic book world, it's interesting to me that DC puts out their trailer for, I'd say, one of their 3 big upcoming feature movies, the one where one of the major stars is not plagued by some real life controversy. And meaning not even with naming names, but those people who play the Flash and poor Aqua Girl or Mera. Sorry, just been in the news way too much lately. And DC is probably going, oh my gosh, are we rolling out with these people? Yet, so my meta brain is going, well, it's so fun that they can really hard charge with the Black Adam thing, which is the one about a villain who becomes like sort of good or an anti-hero, as we say. But again, I don't know about, but played by like sort of a classic good guy type. I mean,
One of the most charismatic actors to grace the Hollywood.
Yeah, and usually, like, am I getting it right? Does The Rock play a villain like a lot since the Scorpion King? I mean,
Yeah, that's
usually
a
been,
funny thing is like The Rock. People complain like The Rock can't be Black Adam. He's always a good guy, but like he started off in the WWE. Like he became huge in the WWE as a heel.
Yeah.
You know, like he was the bad guy in the WWE, and that's for so long. But similarly, though, he's just so charismatic that as evil as he was, even in the wrestling promotion, people just gravitated to him, and they liked him so much that like all his like heel moves became his babyface moves, right? Like the people's elbow and all that stuff, like doing that, like calling people jabroni, and it doesn't matter what your name is, was just as popular when he was a good guy, and he was doing the same thing when he was a good guy than when he was a bad guy in the WWE. So yeah, but this is the first time he's playing a bad guy, I think, in the movies, because he is always the hero. I mean, even in like Fast and Furious, he's the antagonist just because he's chasing Dom and all them. But then he joins the family too by Fast like 6 or 7, until like they have an actual falling out in real life.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, this wasn't the Scorpion King. Wasn't he the Scorpion King? And
but then the Scorpion King movie, he's the protagonist. Like
that's right.
He's in the Mummy too as the quote unquote bad guy. But then again, similarly, he's so charismatic, and when they made the Scorpion King movie, you know, he was the good guy.
Okay,
and it was about how
I clearly have bad rock history or less rock history known than you guys, so I shouldn't apply the analysis. But on meta level, I thought it was pretty.
No, it's
pretty
true.
interesting.
I mean, it goes back to, remember, a couple weeks ago we were like, why is DC delaying all their movies? And I don't know that they're delaying them because they knew Ezra Miller and Amber Heard were going to have legal troubles. In fact, I feel like by delaying the movies, it just prolongs the like.
Yeah, they should just rush him out there and get it over with.
Well, you're right.
No.
Seriously, I was thinking that. Honestly, I feel like at this point, like, if The Flash came out in November, just deal with all the fallout now, rather than, like, now you have to wait an extra 6 months of Ezra getting some more shit. You know what I mean? And unless you're going to use that extra time to magically replace him the way Zack Snyder replaced that comedian Chris D'Elia with Tig Notaro in the Army of Darkness movie, or when they replaced,
okay,
yeah, that just came out last year, or the Kevin Spacey was replaced with Christopher Plummer in that one movie. they just digitally inserted Christopher Plummer in all of his scenes. If they do that with like a Grant Gustin or whoever, like maybe that's what they'll need to do to get this movie out in June. But it's. Like, every news story that comes out, every time Ezra Miller shows up in my trending, I'm like, oh shit. Now what? I know.
He's just such a mess.
Bad news. And news way too much. Anyway.
Yeah.
Not like my good old squeaky clean Black Adam. Anyway, Keith?
Yeah, so I finally saw Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Ooh.
And I feel like a terrible person for taking so long to watch it, because it was, like, I think for me, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, like 2022 is all about movies and like daughters and their moms, you know what I mean? But to me, like what I think choked me up was the relationship between Evelyn and Wayman, her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Even more so than the mother-daughter stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's I don't know, have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once yet, Dominic? It's streaming now, so you can actually you don't have to go to a theater.
No, because I continue to be an awful person. So go ahead.
Bad Asian. I finally was able to turn in my Bad Asian card and see the movie. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole sequence, and one of the multiverses is essentially a Wong Kar-wai movie where Michelle Yeoh was a movie star, and they never. And in that world, she and Wayman, who's played by Ke Huy Quan, the original Short Round and Data from Goonies, making his triumphant return to leading man status. They never married, or they broke up, you know, before, you know, her life became terrible in America. Like one plot point is that she's like, they just live this awful life, and Wayman wants a divorce. And in this one universe where they're both like hot and successful, they never got together. But then but because it's also a Wong Kar-wai movie, like they still long for each other. Mm-hmm. And yeah. They're still pining. And well, just real quick, like I saw people before I'd seen the movie. I saw people kind of like showing screenshots from these scenes and saying like, "This is just like a Wong Kar-wai." But I'm like, oh wow. But like watching the movie is like, oh well, of course, like it's clearly an homage to Wong Kar-wai. It was like, you're not like discovering anything, motherfucker. Like this is such like it's shot like a Wong Kar-wai movie. You know what I mean? Like there's all this like. They're in slow motion and everything else is blurry in the background. Anyway, but there's the relationship between Kwan's character and Yo's character is what got me. Like that's where I
love
getting emotional.
That scene that you're talking about where he says, you know, even though you're breaking my heart right now, again, I just want you to know that I would be happy in any universe to be with you doing taxes and laundry. And I was like,
yeah,
it was so beautiful. And he was so good. I hope he gets some award recognition.
This movie deserves all of the awards. I know it came out early this year, so you know when movies are a year out from Oscar season, it's usually hard. But I feel like this movie, the buzz around it is so powerful that. At the very least, there's going to be an original screenplay and the best actress for Michelle. Like,
Yeah.
She's finally going to get her overdue Best Actress nomination because she should have got one for Crazy Rich Asians, and she should have got one for Crouching Tiger.
Okay.
I think she should have gotten nominated for Crazy Rich Asians at the very least.
I was going because I don't care for either of those movies that much. Not because
But
she
Michelle
wasn't great
Yeoh's performances
not
in
because
both movies
she was great in
are
both,
magnificent, and she deserved recognition both times. That this would be, if this is the makeup Oscar, it's a well-deserved. This is not a Scent of a Woman Oscar. You know what I'm saying? This is going to be a well-deserved makeup Oscar.
Yeah.
So, at the very least, I think original screenplay and Best Actress. Hopefully, Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor for Ke Huy Quan, because it's a shame that dude was not able to work for 40 years.
I know.
Considering how iconic he's two of the most iconic characters in pop culture, Short Round and Data, to not be able to do anything in 40 years just because, he's Asian. Like, that's the reason. He's Asian, so he can't be in anything.
Yeah, I mean, he still sounds the same, too, so I don't know if his voice still sounding kind of, unfortunately, like... more
like squeaky.
Squeaky and childlike is kind of maybe a part of it.
But to your point, even, he's so suave in the Wong Kar-wai scenes.
Yeah, he's so good. He's so good in the whole movie, but that scene, when he delivers that line, I was just like, my heart is in pieces. It was so good. Yeah.
I mean, and everyone's talking about the mother-daughter stuff, but for me, it was the husband-wife stuff that really moved me. So, highly recommend you rent it, or I think it's just, you can only purchase it on streaming right now, but totally worth it. It's probably the same cost it would have cost to go see it at a theater in San Francisco anyway. So I would say drop those $19.99 and get that movie in your collection right now, Dominic.
I will send you $20 to watch it.
No, that's not the thing. It's just, I'm gonna buy it and maybe watch it with the folks.
Okay. Yeah, it's totally worth it. And it's such a commentary on... I mean, there's just too much to talk about. It's just such a full movie that it's also one of the good things about owning it is... It's one of those movies that deserves a rewatch. And I haven't watched it a second time. I plan to because there's so much happens in that first overwhelming sense of just everything's coming at you, everything everywhere all at once.
Yes.
It's such an apt title. That to see it a second time would be able to catch some of the nuances, and I think that's why that movie's made the way it is. And the crazy thing is that movie was made on a $20 million budget.
And the Russo brothers actually were producers.
They were producers on it.
And the lady who does all the casting for MCU is also the casting director for this movie.
That I didn't know. Mm-hmm. But their VFX department was 4 people, and they made that movie for a 10th of the budget of Doctor Strange. And it doesn't look like it at all. So, shout out to the Daniels, shout out to Michelle Yeoh, shout out to Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's Nerd Poppin', that's Hard Knock Life. Britney Monet, how can people find you on the internet?
So you can find me at Hi Britney Monet on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check out at Naomi Podcast, which has the Black Vlog of Black Lightning, the Naomi Podcast Situation Room, and me and Nate actually were on DC TV After Dark, which is part of the DC TV Podcast Network, and we basically get interviewed by other people who do podcasts on the network, and we did improv games and just talked about fandom, and then also obviously the cancellations of Naomi and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So
will your show go on as the Lituation Room going forward, since there's no other show?
So Lituation Room would basically be everyone who's on the Black Lightning podcast and us talking about everything under the sun that we feel like talking about.
Dominic.
Oh, I'm Dominic Ma on Twitter, Instagram. I'll be Dama, D-O-M-M-A-H.
You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_Chow, and on Instagram at RealKeithChow. Follow us at The Nerds of Color on every platform, and go to hardknockmedia.com to find this and all of the podcasts in the Hard Knock family. Please give us a rating and a review. If you do subscribe, you can subscribe to our videos at youtube.com/The Nerds of Color and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Nerds of Color. That's it for this week. Until next time.
Oh, we didn't talk about Bruno from Miss Marvel, but I would like to talk about Bruno next time.
We don't talk about Bruno.
Well, I would like to talk. I'm just voting to talk about Bruno next time.
We don't talk about Bruno.
Because he's white?
No. No.